Good morning to everyone here, and as well as to our friends joining us online. I'd just like to preface this with, I've been practicing in this temple for about 18 years. I grew up in the South, and other than a background hum of Christianity in the Bible Belt, I came to this temple with no prior spiritual practice. This year, we've been drawing inspiration for our Dharma talks from chapter 3 in the scripture of the founding teacher, Master Soto-san. Chapter 3 is simply called Practice, and it consists of 63 sections that instruct us on what to practice, assess and check your mind over and over, how to practice, the 9 essentials of daily practice, and why to practice, to realize Buddhahood. An emphasis on the necessity of Buddhist practice in daily life is pervasive throughout the chapter. I was totally struck, however, by a particular sentence in section 5 of chapter 3, where he says, "Practitioners train diligently because they understand that practice is vital to their future." Well, that started me musing about my future. My first thought was, well, statistically speaking, my future likely consists of 5 to 10 years. So compared to the previous 79, is that really so important? However, I think Master Soto-san is also talking in section 5 about future lifetimes. I totally appreciate and deeply respect Master Soto-san's scripture for its emphasis on the here and now of daily life and his belief that enlightenment is possible now, not just after 10,000 kalpas, which I think works out to about 1 billion lifetimes. But I also have to face what is a perpetual conundrum for me, a belief in reincarnation and karma. For many Western practitioners, this is quite a stumbling block. There is an entire chapter in our scripture book called Sending on Spirits in Transition. It has 38 sections and is quite specific about how to send spirits on to their next lifetime. In our deliverance ceremonies, we verbally exhort the person who has died to let go of their attachments to this life in order to move on to the next one. My discomfort with that chapter is sometimes almost overwhelming. For me, the concept of an afterlife, or as we say in Buddhism, a favorable or unfavorable rebirth, for me, it is not something I can understand because it is not science compatible. Transference of energy and matter to some other state is compatible. But transference of spirit to another body is not. Furthermore, the idea of souls being reinstalled into new bodies according to their karma, a sort of moral cause and effect, kind of implies a sort of cosmic judgment as to who gets a favorable rebirth and who does not. Buddhism does raise radical questions about our inner and outer reality, but can it accommodate a rational perspective with regard to an afterlife? Well, I don't know, but certainly the topics of the nature of death and the existence or non-existence of an afterlife are philosophically interesting and deserving of our attention. Most religions teach us that life is sacred and important. Science tells us that life appeared on the earth through sheer happenstance and that it could easily vanish in the very same way. You know those pale blue dot photographs from the Voyager 1 spacecraft? It was this tiny little azure blue dot from way out in space, just just alone in the midst of gray and black. They were quite stunning photographs and really kind of entered in a lot of people's consciousness. And I think those pale blue dot photographs have led many of us to believe that we on Earth are somehow special and that our existence is somehow miraculous. But our solar system is an infinitesimally small part of even the known vastness of space, and we are likely not unique or alone. This is not particularly comforting for most people, but for me, it seems quite lovely. An image of personal and earthly insignificance is somehow liberating, as close as I can get to understanding the Heart Sutra with its emphasis on emptiness. No eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Yes. Of course, a belief in an afterlife is simply that, a belief, an unvalidated, an unvalidatable belief. Some would argue that if it makes a person feel better in their present life, well, where's the problem? Buddhism teaches us that we have no permanent self or soul. However, the belief in rebirth and the possibility of eventually achieving nirvana can offer a sense of purpose and direction in our lives, knowing that ethical conduct and spiritual practice contribute to our future as well as our present well-being. Belief in an afterlife can provide comfort in times of grief and uncertainty, and hope that life somehow continues beyond physical death. Some Christian teachings even include a belief in resurrection, that is, an actual bodily existence beyond death, such as Jesus had. This is not something I can even begin to understand or draw comfort from. I think we can all agree that the search for truth is totally human. Thus, we must ask if the concept of an afterlife simply isn't true. There's no empirical evidence for an afterlife, so we must ask if a faith-based belief in such a thing has any drawbacks. Well, one possible drawback is that striving for a favorable rebirth may lead us to a fear-based or reward-based morality, rather than genuine ethical behavior grounded in compassion and empathy. Moreover, the emphasis on preparing for a future realm may overshadow efforts to address pressing issues in the here and now, such as social injustice, environmental degradation, and human suffering. Perhaps it could lead to a complacency in our practice. Oh, we'll always have another chance to get it right. Some would argue, as I would, that a belief in an afterlife undermines the value and urgency of our present life, the one we have right now. I believe that the finiteness of my life is precisely what gives it meaning. It's why it matters what I do with this one. From a Buddhist standpoint, the concept of rebirth and karma can be questioned philosophically in terms of its mechanisms. I mean, like, how does it work? We say we have no permanent self. Our self is impermanent and lacks inherent existence. How then can we not help but challenge the notion of a continuous entity somehow moving from one life to another? This seems to be a fairly murky area that many Westerners, including myself, have trouble understanding. But back to our chapter on practice in section 5, it ends with this sentence: "You all must review with a critical spirit whether you have awakened to what connections your practice has to yourselves." Now, all this gloomy disbelief about an afterlife is coming from someone who is really pretty devoted to her practice and who has a deep respect for Won Buddhist teachings especially the writings of Master Soto-san. I can't say I logically understand my connection to my practice, but I feel it. I feel its positivity. I generally do not question its value in my life. I unhesitatingly believe it to be beneficial. I do, however, wrestle with some of our teachings, especially those about reincarnation, and am therefore totally grateful for a Sangha and a tradition of Won Buddhism that accepts rather than rejects me for my opinions. Questioning is a highly valued practice in Won Buddhism. If you recall, it is in our essential dharmas of daily practice. Well, hooray for that. So I'll stick with my daily practice in the here and now and continue in a state of questioning about an afterlife. As for my belief or disbelief in an afterlife, my belief or disbelief in miracles, I try to simply recognize my thoughts and, most importantly, my prejudices, and take a more expansive view. I'll end with my favorite quote from Wendell Berry, who said, "The miraculous is not extraordinary. Turning water into wine was, after all, a very small miracle. We forget the greater and still continuing miracle by which water, with oil and sunlight, is turned into grapes." Thank you.